to introduce today's guest. Major Williams. Major Williams is a public speaker and an entrepreneur who was born and raised in Dallas, Texas by a single parent. At a very early age, he thought he would become a pastor and have his own church someday. Major moved to Los Angeles, California in 2001, where he eventually worked in the mental health industry as a youth counselor and with the residents of the Gower Teenage Shelter in Hollywood, California. Shortly thereafter, he launched Major Media Inc., Inc., a boutique social media company. The company brokered millions in revenues for clients, fostering relationships with brands all over the country. Currently, Major is the marketing director and co-founder of iHeart Art, with his wife of 19 years, Asia?
Yes.
Asia Guy Williams. Together they run multiple indie business ventures, one of which is called Majorpreneur, which focuses on educating entrepreneurs on how to implement successful strategies and generate passive income. Here's a quote. "Running for mayor didn't surprise many of my peers. Living in Pasadena, raising my kids, growing our businesses in a city we love, simply became a storybook narrative for us. It is time to think major about our future in Pasadena." So welcome.
Thank you. That was great.
Yeah.
It actually sounds even better being read back.
Read by me?
Right.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
She's good at that.
You can use it if you want.
Yeah.
You'll have the clip.
It's a great tone.
Let's see. So, Major Williams, can you finish the sentence with me? I am the only
Republican in the room in a lot of spaces that I've been in here lately.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been enjoying it, but at the same time, I've been working really hard to educate and bring other people along with me.
Yes. So, before we get into that piece of your story, you grew up in Dallas.
Yes.
You have 3 siblings, or you're one of 3?
I have 3 others. I have an older
Okay.
sister and 2 younger than me.
And then you were raised by a single mom.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Strong mom.
A strong mom.
Fantastic mom. Yeah.
Did growing up without a dad impact you while you were growing up? Was that something that was a daily thing for you, or was your mom? Was it just like because your mom was so strong and that was all you knew, you didn't miss it?
Well, I think I missed it, but I think the problem is it's kind of complex. If you're asking me what I thought then, as a young kid growing up or as a teenager, I process it differently than I do as an adult.
Sure.
Right now I'm very forgiving, and I'm also accepting if this guy or my father came back into my life for the sake of my 9-year-old son, ask about him. And so I would love for him to have a relationship with him. Do I have one? No. Do I know who he is? No. I've only met the person once before in my entire life. And so back then, I feel like subconsciously it affected me greatly, because when you have absence in your home of a father, that's detrimental. That's a huge impact. But the reverse effect is that I made a commitment to myself. If I was ever blessed to have kids or a family or whatever, I would be the best dad, the opposite of the person that is my biological father.
Yeah.
You know, so it was an impact, but it got a lot of positivity out of it also.
And clearly you are a very hands-on dad. You brought your 2 sons with you.
Yes.
Here today.
Absolutely.
Who are actually the quietest kids I've ever been around. But if you do hear them, they are Lord and
Nkalo. Yes.
Beautiful children. So thank you for blessing us with them today.
Thank you.
You wanted your own church when you were growing up.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about that.
So my family was heavily into church, whether it be me going with my mother, whether it be going with my grandmother, my grandparents, or whatnot. And we went to 2 different churches, Hopewell, and also another one called St. Luke. I just, I enjoyed the choir. I enjoyed the pastor's sermons. I enjoyed the goosebumps that it gave me, but I also thought it was so weird sometimes as I got older, of course, that I felt like he was talking directly to me every single time, and it resonated. And then, but I also looked at the aspects of he was helping so many people. It gave a lot of people joy, and I've always been about that because that's what I derive from. My mom is like a neighborhood public servant. I've told this story once before where as a young kid, I would get ready to go to junior high school, and I would go in the living room, get ready to walk out the door, and there are 3 homeless people sleeping in our living room. One on the couch, one on the smaller couch, and someone on the floor. And as a kid, I couldn't process it as I can now. I could not stand it. I was just like, you have these folks in our house and they have them bathed or whatever. But what she did was lay down a foundation of servitude, so to speak. So I appreciate it a lot more because she actually, compelled me to do a lot of the things that I've done from a philanthropy standpoint.
Right.
So yeah.
Is that how you see politics, as service?
I do. I really do, and I feel like, with having a marketing background, I think that the messaging has to be different. It has to come from a different angle. It has to show that it's creative. It still has imagination. It can be a part of it. And it can be fun. I think that so much policy and so much division and dilution of news and stuff like that has kind of changed the climate of it. And so with anything, even though we know it's something challenging and something hard, you still have to go after it. You still have to attempt to do it. And I'm only a small morsel in the speck of the bigger plan in the puzzle. But I just feel like I've been blessed, and I've been given the ability to be able to communicate a message effectively enough to where it resonates with people. And that started just from me years and years being a middleman and doing marketing, taking your product, taking a client, taking a situation and making it better and putting them with the right partnerships so they can flourish and excel.
Right.
And so I'm basically just copying and pasting my superpower in marketing, advertising, and sales, and putting it in the political field to be able to foster true empowerment for people of my city of Pasadena.
Yeah. So why Republican?
Republican, it only came two and a half years ago.
Oh. Were you a Democrat?
I was a Democrat.
Were you raised in a Democratic household?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I tell people it's by default. It wasn't because I was educatedly became a Democrat. It says that my mom say, this is what you do. My grandmother say, this is what you do. My grandfather would say, this is what you do.
Yeah.
And you didn't question it. I never have made a vote up until recently that I actually did any research, put any energy into
So you were like a default Democrat.
Myself. Yeah, 100%. Not until my marketing company started working on political campaigns, and a good friend of mine ran for public office. He ran for lieutenant governor of California, and he asked me to come on board to help with marketing, social media, and community outreach. During that time, I traveled all over California. It was a $2 million campaign, so we had some of the brightest minds in the political world in this small circle that we had, and I was privy to every single thing. So whether it's strategy, information, and education, once you are privy to the information and know the history of different parties or groups or whatever, then you put yourself in a place to make a logical decision, a common sense decision based upon your own opinion, and you just kind of derive from that. But what I realized during those conversations, because one of my good friends is a Caucasian guy I've been knowing for 7-8 years, is a great guy, family guy, we've done a lot of good stuff together, but they're telling me this is the guy I should hate. And I didn't agree with that, And so I was able to form my own consensus, so to speak, and then I realized that I live by these conservative values already. I just haven't put the label on top of it.
Right.
And that's what I tell people. It's as simple as that when it comes down to why I'm a Republican. I live by the core foundations of what that is, what it stands for, and what it means to be a Republican.
Yeah. I had Condoleezza Rice. She was a Democrat until 1982.
Yes.
And when she changed her political affiliation to Republican, in part because she disagreed with foreign policy of Jimmy Carter, who was the president then, but also because of the influence of her father, who was a Republican. And she told the 2000 Republican National Convention, my father joined the party because the Democrats in Jim Crow, Alabama of 1952 would not register him to vote, but the Republicans did. So there were there's a contingency of black Republicans that come from that era that stayed registered to the Republican Party. But and she doesn't actually say here why she switched, except for that she disagreed with Jimmy Carter's policy. But she received a lot of pushback for that.
Right.
Have you received pushback?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I've received a lot of pushback, and mainly because when you align yourself with certain individuals, especially if they're polarizing, like I've been to the White House 3 times in the last 10 months. This is a kid from the projects, from poverty, to build himself up, to be self-sustainable, independent entrepreneur, but also sharing with other people. I've done all these so-called great things by the opinion of many, but immediately once that was identified, I'm less ostracized immediately. And to us, it was puzzling, interesting, but it was something that we kind of like knew that could potentially happen. But it's never, you never understand it until it's actually happening. No different than me being, attacked now with people creating pages in light of my candidacy, and the page is called Protect Pasadena. Like, protected from who? From me? Like, they created a page called Protect Pasadena, and the strategy is a little awkward because they're following a lot of people that already follow me, so they pretty much already know what I stand for and who I am. But the vitriol of some of the language and the content that they're using, hashtagging my family, and we recently had a code enforcer from the city come to my wife's business. My wife been in business for 8-9 years in Pasadena, and that's never happened. But all of a sudden, even though we're good, like, we didn't have any issues, everything is solid with that. But to know that they're going to those lengths to do that, just tells you how much of a threat we probably are, how much they dislike my decision.
Yeah.
But we're gonna keep rolling. I believe in having faith. I'm God led. I have an amazing wife that's supportive. My kids are supportive, and as long as I have those things in place, foundation wise, I'm flowing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pasadena is 71% Democrat.
No, it's 84.
It's 84. So
no. I think it's like 74.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a very a smaller percentage Republican,
Right.
and then there's some independent in there as well.
Right. In total, it's 84,000 registered voters.
Okay.
And 30,000 are Republicans.
84,000 registered voters. And the current mayor of Pasadena, I know it's a nonpartisan race. But
Absolutely.
do you know what his political leanings are?
He's a Democrat.
He's a Democrat.
Yeah.
So do you feel like you are facing more of a challenge being black and running, or being a Republican and running?
I think it's a combination of the two.
Yeah.
There's a traditional mindset on how you obtain success and what accomplishments means. No different than, say, for instance, if, today we're in a different time of, I call it, how you expedite your information and how you become more successful faster. Say, for instance, if I wanted to get into cutting hair, right? I can go on YouTube. If I have talent, I can go on YouTube and watch somebody do it for like 2 weeks, and I can be just as good as someone took a 6 to 8 month course and got that certificate.
Yeah.
So we're in a different space when it comes to that. And when I tell people with me, they was looking at me like, the audacity of you to run for mayor. But I'm like, I've been in politics my entire life. You know why? Because it's politics having a relationship. It's politics having friendships. It's politics going to work, dealing with your supervisor or your manager, or dealing with people in day-to-day, dealing with people in traffic. Politics is only a word. We put the label of politics only with one association, but it applies to so much more.
Right.
And so with me, with a background of marketing, sales, and advertising, I've been negotiating and dealing with people, individuals, and companies for over 20 years. And so me, I feel like I'm at home. I'm right in place. But the difference that I'm bringing is a different kind of alignment, because I want to empower people. They want to develop people. They want to develop, companies and buildings and empower developers. I want to empower the people. And I'm not saying I'm against developers. We just have to slow down so we can have somebody in there with a different brand of leadership and skill set that can actually empower people to afford all this new development that we've occurred over the last 5-10 years.
Right. So you want to take it back a little bit to get a foundation.
Absolutely.
So that people can keep up, basically, with what's going on.
Because they spent 20, 30, 40 years of their tax dollars beautifying the city. And now those are the same people being pushed out. So who are we building up the city for?
Well,
and that's not a fair assessment.
Yeah. You're running what looks to me like a very grassroots campaign. I love the text me and we'll talk, which is really similar to what Barack Obama did.
For sure.
When he was running. Was that intentional?
It was. And I have conversations when I'm talking to different groups all the time. I said, what we've lacked as Republicans is doing that kind of outreach, the grassroots type of campaigning. And me, I want to be successful. I want to master everything I possibly can. So I will pull from anybody who's doing anything successful if it resonates.
Yes.
You copy
And his was
paste
very
it.
successful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You copy and paste. So that definitely did play a factor into some of the things that I do. I look at every campaign. Look at if they're doing something that's effective. Oh, we're going to add that to our repertoire.
Yeah.
Why not?
That's great.
Yeah.
I also keep likening your campaign to Randall Pearson's, Sterling K. Brown's campaign on the show This Is Us.
Okay.
Have you watched the show?
I haven't had a chance.
So he's running for assemblyman, I think, in the show.
Okay.
And he's literally taken his door off the hinge so that his constituents can come in
Fantastic.
and see him. So I love that you're doing things like Taco Tuesday, which we just talked about, and that you've opened your campaign headquarters to any constituent who wants to talk. Can you talk a little bit more about why that approach?
I think overall, so for the last year or so, I've been going to city council meetings, and I've talked to a lot of different residents, and there's a narrative that's building in regards to when they're having certain issues or frustrations or whatever, that it takes a little bit longer for them to actually get in contact with them. And we recently saw a interview that the current mayor was doing, and the interviewer asked him a question of transparency and how do people get in touch with you? And he's like, well, look, I see people all the time, when I'm in Vons and etc. And I thought that was a very telling statement for him to say, I see people randomly all the time. But what about the people that are deliberately, intentionally trying to get in touch with you via the one outlet they only have, which is your email, and it takes 6 months, if ever, you reply back to those emails. And so understanding that, moving forward with my campaign, I said, you know what? I'm going to operate just how I operate anyway. I have 5,000 phone numbers in my phone. And so when it comes to this, I said, I'm going to get another phone, and I'm going to allow people to text or call me. So now people can actually call me as well, too.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to have a more personable feel. And on top of the fact, I realized I was a new candidate, which is why I started so early back in March. And I had to build that trust so they can support me and ultimately vote for me. And what better way to expedite that process by giving them direct access to you. And so that's why that manifested.
That's great. And I just have to say that that's how I found you, because I was at an event where two people had just come from hearing you speak.
Okay.
And they made a beeline over to me to tell me how great you were.
Fantastic.
And that I should look you up, that I should familiarize myself with you. So I looked you up, and then I saw your phone number, and I texted you, and you texted me right back.
Right.
Which I thought was pretty unbelievable, and it was easy to tell that it was actually you.
Right.
And not somebody texting on your behalf.
Right, and I literally get over 100 text messages a day.
Yeah, and you were like, we could meet, we could whatever, and I was like, oh, he's true to his word. He's doing what he said he was going to do.
Right.
Which I thought was really impressive. Using the candidacy or your mayoralship, what do you call it, as a springboard to run for president. And you were telling me about a time where you were at the White House with Candace Owens.
And so we were talking, and she was like, this is going to be so great. And then she had like a look on her face like, but what about Congress? And this was early on. This was like 5 months ago, 6 months ago. And I specified with her once I start something, I kind of like to see it through. But I'm very strategic also. So it's already a battle that I'm going to have to fight right now with having limited name recognition. So I've done a great job. So anywhere I walk around the city right now, everyone knows who I am. So it's a really cool aspect. But we had to work really hard for that. But if we win, when we win, it's going to be a great blueprint for other candidates in the future to run. And it's also something we can take for further aspirations. So that'd be something that's on the whiteboard, so to speak, and we'll just figure it out once we come to that. But honestly, I'm tunnel vision on Pasadena and empowering our people.
Are you running against the current mayor?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
He's running for re-election.
He's running for, and are there other candidates as well?
Over the last 17 days, 3 more jumped into it. To the benefit of me, they're all Democrats. One gentleman, he ran in 2000. Two of them. One guy, he ran in 2015. Out of 15,000 votes, he got 76. So we don't even have him on our whiteboard, so he's not on our radar.
He shall remain nameless.
Right, and the other gentleman, he's sitting on city council right now. He's been on city council for 19 years. Currently today, and as we see it as Gen Xers and millennials, if you're in city council for 19 years, that shows low aspirations. But we're going to give you a report card on your true impact. True impact is not voting for certain services and workshops. It's about financial, fiscal responsibility, being in partnership with the community. If you don't have those skill sets or have a history of doing that, then now you set yourself up to be actually eliminated and not supported.
Yeah.
And so that's what we understand about that narrative also. And the other person that may actually enter, she actually ran in 2015. And she was named the top 2 with the current mayor, so they had a runoff. And she lost by like 1,500 votes. But then she disappeared.
Okay.
You know, she pulled a Hillary.
Yeah.
You know, and all of a sudden she may potentially run again, but I don't know if that's going to fare well with the community from what I've been hearing from them. You know, you can't have all this work and then you disappear and then you come back when it's election time and try to jump in. So we think it's too late.
Yeah.
And, you know, I hope she doesn't run, just for the simple fact that, I hope she doesn't run. That's a great story.
From looking at your campaign, from everything that I read about you, what I understood was that you were this kind of marketing super whiz who lives in Pasadena with his family, loves the city, and just sees where it can be improved and how to improve it. You have a plan. You have several plans.
Yes.
They're kind of listed. They're not kind of. They are listed on your website.
Right.
I wanted to talk to you about 4 of the items on there.
Sure.
Transparency.
Yes.
It said allowing any resident to log in and see how their tax dollars are being spent
Absolutely.
at any time.
Absolutely.
Has that been done before anywhere?
No.
No.
Never.
So
it's never even come in any conversation
Yeah.
anywhere before. And that's when I tell you, like, I don't think traditionally like any of those guys. They don't have any imagination. So we're going to get 2 things from that. And I do this to spark the conversations. So say, for instance, if it happens, it's going to be great. You can actually go in real time on the city website and you can see where the tax dollars are going. So if the city council, or they're saying they're about transparency, now we're going to get a chance to see if our city government is about transparency. Now, the other flip side of it, if they're not about transparency, if they shoot that down, they're going to have to explain why they're not about transparency now, right? So now it's about the people and them, just like any other city council elected official, they'll be up for election also. And so they're going to have something to pay for of their lack of support for transparency, which is what they say they've been for. So I'm changing the narrative and I'm showing them how to fight differently. I'm showing them how to be impactful differently to hold us accountable. Because I've always said it's easy to help people. People build this crazy narrative and this mystique about, it's so hard to help people. But when you have certain leverage and certain opportunities that you can lend to people, even if it's information, you can change the dynamics in the course of someone's life. And I always share this story. I was at this rent control meeting. And this woman, she stood up and she was saying her plight about her rent going up $75. She's on a fixed income. She was literally crying and she just was like distraught about this. Now, hearing this story, the average person may not feel like that's a big detrimental increase, but for someone like her, that's her story, that's her plight. And so what I do is always look for opportunities to solve problems, right? And I noticed in her hand she had an iPhone. It was the newest iPhone, but she had an iPhone. So afterwards, I immediately went up to her and I said, would you allow me to show you something that could potentially help you pay your rent? And she looked at me awkward, but then she obliged. She allowed me to show her. I went to her phone. I downloaded 2 apps. They were survey apps. And I told her, I said, if you spend like 3 hours over 7 days, just randomly 3 hours, put in 3 hours over 7 days, you can make $25 extra a week. 4 weeks, that's $100.
doing surveys.
Doing surveys.
Yeah.
You're at home, you're retired, right?
You hear that, hon?
So fast forward,
Yeah.
this was 4.5 months ago. She sent me the most amazing letter. My wife actually had like a couple tears in her eyes. She's making close to $400 a month now.
Right.
Doing surveys. But if she didn't know, she would never be at that place.
Right.
Now, I preface that when I say you can share that story with the current mayor, and what he would tell you, probably sarcastically in the way that he does, he'll say, that's not my role. That's not what I'm supposed to do. And he would be right, because the black and white definition doesn't describe that. But in
Right.
2019, we need more, stepping outside the black and white definition of leadership.
You're expanding that role
Absolutely.
for yourself.
Absolutely.
Building tiny houses to help combat homelessness.
Yes.
Scott loves tiny houses. They're one of
Big
his,
fan.
I
his
love
favorite
them.
things.
I
Yeah.
love them. I love them.
I mean, he doesn't live in one, but he loves the idea of it.
Right.
How viable is that? Is that something that will really make an impact on homelessness?
So there's no absolute understanding of what the impact will be because we haven't done it. And in order to know the true impact, you have to pull data from the experience of actually doing it. And so multiple things are in play right now. There are other cities and different models that we can pull from. But more importantly, me and my wife are stepping out right now. We're going to Dallas, which is where I was born. In my childhood home that I grew up in, we're actually working on a solution and plan to demolish that house and put 6 tiny homes on that property.
And tiny homes, what's the definition of them square footage wise?
Oh my, it's probably no more than 400,
Okay.
500 feet.
Yeah, they're truly tiny.
Yeah, they're truly tiny
Yeah.
homes. And we're going to pull some data from the development of that. That's one aspect of it. The other one is just trying to convince people that it's something viable, and the only way that I feel like we can do it is pulling from other examples from other cities,
Right.
the people that are doing it. But I feel like shelter is shelter. But if you give somebody an opportunity to have shelter and also include services and mental health services,
Yes.
a part of that particular program, statistically you give yourself an opportunity to get people re-emerge back in society in a way that they feel worthy and comfortable and happy.
Yeah.
But we're never going to get anything 100%.
No,
You know,
no,
so-
but it's just important because the problem is so challenging, and there are so many people on the streets of Los Angeles in particular. We've gained
Right.
national attention for it.
Absolutely.
So anything that might help move the needle at all is helpful. You also talk about generating income through quote-unquote unconventional ways for the community. Can you just name a couple of those unconventional ways?
So one of them is something that I propose. It's kind of like a group economics, and it's nothing new. It's nothing genius that I thought of. I'm just pulling from other successful models, and I called it the Pasadena Fund. And the example I always use is that, say for instance, if we get like 3,000 residents that participate from the beginning of the inception of it, and you commit $20 a month for the first 15 months, after the 15 months, the fund becomes active. And what you have, and nowhere in the country, you have individuals, 3,000 individuals that contributed $300 over a 15-month period, and they now are part of a $900,000 fund. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So the fund itself has 2 flexible purposes. One of the purposes is that now you can actually say, for instance, if you were a part of it, you say, you know what, we saw this house in development in Detroit. If the house is $15,000, another $15,000 to fix up, we can sell it for $100,000, right? Because a lot of boom is happening, whatever. On a day-to-day, being either low income or middle class, check for check, you couldn't take advantage of that opportunity. So the fund will make an assessment no different than the bank to make sure it's a viable opportunity for the fund. And then they say, you know what, we'll give you 100% of the funds you need. So that's $30,000. And they'll go and purchase that for you, give them money for the upgrades or whatever. And then once you guys actually go through the transaction of selling the house, the fund gets 70% of those funds. You get 30% of those funds. What's beautiful about the 30%, if you really understand it, now you can actually go and duplicate the process again without the fund.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then you can get 100% of your profit. So it's a self-sustainability. So that's just one mechanism of how it can work. The other
right.
mechanism, there are frustrations about a lot of gentrifications in your neighborhood. Now you actually have a fund to combat that. So instead of that Chick-fil-A coming in by someone else that you don't know, you guys can actually lobby to create that Chick-fil-A for yourself. So now 3,000 members have dividends coming every month off of that Chick-fil-A that's in the same city.
Yeah.
So you can gentrify your own community. So now we eliminate the excuses. You can step up and you can really change the narrative. Be patient, be diligent, and have a strategy in place. And you guys can do some amazing things if you really understand what group economics can do for you and your community.
Right. is this in play in other cities, group economics?
Yes, there is this gentleman by the name of Jay Morrison in Atlanta. He created the Tulsa Real Estate Fund. The Tulsa Real Estate Fund is doing amazing work, and the ideology comes from Tulsa, Oklahoma, Black Wall Street, on how they built up an entire city based upon their
Yes.
economics. And he took that same blueprint and formula, and he has I want to say like a 40,000 square feet new building, painting it black. So it's like the Black House, but it's for entrepreneurship. It's for financial literacy. It has all these great programs, credit literacy, real estate literacy, and it's amazing. So it's already happening all over. You got these people like Gary Vaynerchuk. You have Grant Cardone, Ty Lopez. All these people talking about group economics.
Yeah.
And just different ways on how you can make income and passive income. So it's happening already. That's how I was able to come up with it. I didn't come
You
up with it
invent
just
it.
out of thin air.
But you want to implement it.
Absolutely.
And help the people of Pasadena help themselves.
Absolutely. And then
Yeah.
being that leveraging platform, now I can actually have these people, the main people, come to our city and help produce these and partner with us on and show us how these mechanisms work.
Right.
You know?
I love that.
Yeah.
The last thing that on your website that I noted was rewarding officers who serve their community with pride and rise above the occasion of their call to help.
Mm-hmm.
And I wondered if you lived in Pasadena when Kendrick McDade was killed by the police. Were you a resident there?
What year
In
was that?
2012. So Kendrick McDade...
No, I wasn't there. I wasn't there. I just got there
No.
a little bit after that.
Okay. He was a 19-year-old black teenager.
Mhm.
He was
I
killed...
met his dad, too.
Yeah, you did?
Mhm.
It was described as a hail of bullets by 2 police officers. Someone had called and reported their backpack and laptop were stolen at gunpoint. The officers were dispatched looking for said person. The caller later recanted and said there was no gun, but it was too late when they stopped Kendrick, and whatever he did next caused them to shoot, and then he died. So they said he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. That was the consensus.
Right.
Oh, right, okay. And so my question is, because I have a quote here. This isn't your quote. The report consists, this is from the Pasadena, what's the Pasadena's newspaper?
Have a couple of them. Pasadena Now, Pasadena Weekly.
Weekly. This is
Okay.
from Pasadena Weekly, thank you. The report consists of a fact-finding and critical review into McDade's death, includes statements from the officers concerned. It was commissioned in the aftermath of his killing by city leaders seeking to calm community tensions. The administration, this is the part that pertained to you, promised full transparency. Instead, when the report was belatedly delivered in August 2014, it was announced that only its recommendations would be made public. There was an outcry and there were protests and there was unrest as a result. So not so much of his shooting and killing, but the fact that the administration, they felt, had perpetrated a falsehood.
Right.
And so my question to you is, what would you have done differently? If you can answer that.
Well, it's complex because
Or what would you do differently in the future?
I mean, that's a very interesting question, and I always try to speak from a educational foundation. Not understanding the complexities of how it's actually done in city government, I can't say that I have full disclosure or experience on how they disclose information. Me being a personal citizen, of course, I would have a different take. You should expose that. You should be very transparent. You should speak on it. You should let the public know word for word, verbatim, whether it be evidence, whether it be testimony. They should know all those certain things, but I can't give an educated response as if I was mayor of Pasadena currently and what I would do.
Yeah.
Because it may end up biting me in the butt. People take that sound bite, and I don't want to speak from an uneducated position.
Right.
But as a citizen, I would definitely, if what I would do, I would make sure that it's transparent with the evidence and a very descriptive recant of what the officer said. what other witnesses may have said.
Yeah.
People need to know that. The parents want to know that.
Mm-hmm.
And I've talked to a lot of different people, and I briefly spoke with his dad at the Jackie Robinson Recreation Center at one event that we were at.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel very bad about that because
You spoke with Kendrick McDade's father?
his father
Yeah.
briefly,
Mm-hmm.
and you could still feel the aura of pain off his body.
No, yeah.
You know, you can see it through his eyes and his face, and we didn't even talk about, you know, any of the details of his son just because I knew who he was.
Yeah.
You could you can feel it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm a very energy type of person, so I'm very connected when it comes to that, and I was just like, I just felt so, you know, I felt a little emotional for him as well too. You know, but yeah, I mean, as a citizen, I would want to be as transparent as possible.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that was actually one of the areas where Mary Pete tripped up because he had a police shooting in South Bend, white cops, black victim, and they didn't feel like he handled that well. So that almost threw him off his course, but
Right.
he's back on course now. So we were talking earlier about people have asked you about your supporting President Trump in the re-election, and then that's kind of all they want to know, and then they're on to the next because now they've categorized you as something.
sure.
Can you tell me why you're supporting him?
Well, it starts from a foundation of me never knowing not to support Trump. I am a young black man growing up in the hood and the projects, and I see all the rappers that I like supporting Donald Trump. Whether it
Like?
be Russell Simmons,
Okay.
Whether it be Snoop Dogg, Tupac, or whoever, you know, everyone spoke highly
Not
of.
Tupac.
Well, not
Yeah.
Tupac.
Yeah.
Seeing him on the Will Smith show, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and all these different shows, Donald Trump was seemingly the cool guy, you know.
Right.
So I didn't know to dig any further than that. It was just what I saw on TV. It was like, it's cool, he's a rich guy, successful, so, you know, I can inspire, you know, get inspiration from that. But I looked at the narrative of not only until he came down that escalator, I was supposed to just vehemently just hate this guy and just not support him 100%. Then thinking for myself.
So wait, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
So back in the day, when he was Donald Trump's citizen, he was someone you admired.
For sure.
And he also, you're right, had the admiration. He and Russell were friends.
Yeah.
He hung out with Snoop Dogg.
Mike Tyson.
Yeah, Mike Tyson.
So all these people that I liked,
Right.
they co-signed this guy.
So Donald Trump citizen you're an admirer of, and then he's elected president.
Yeah.
And so that's where you're talking about now.
And then the narrative changed that he's this, you know, this racist, this bigoted. But then I looked at it, I was like, man, this is great marketing, right? So I have a different perspective. I say they're supposed to say all these crazy things about him to get me not to like him or not to vote him. So I don't have the same foundation as the regular person. I look at it all as their campaign. And what else do they supposed to say? Nice pleasantries about the guy? Like they are going for a position, they're competing.
Right.
So I'm not the average person, you know, when it comes to that. So I was looking at it from a different angle. But then it comes down to policy. It comes down to policy. And it amazes me with everything that's going against him in the Democratic Party, trying to damage him and get impeached and everything else. But my thing is, you have to do things simultaneously. You can do all that against him, but you have to do some things that are impactful for the community. And they haven't done that over the last 2.5 years that he's been in office. And that's going to be detrimental. Now, I think it's going to be something that bite them in the butt. So I follow him and I support him because of simply the policies. Prison reform is something I can truly connect with. I have a lot of family members in prison. Had a family member that was released, and you know that 90%, 97% of the ones of the 4,000 that was released recently in the prison reform first step were black. You know, so I'm looking at all this low job and unemployment. He stepped up for the HBCU colleges, billions of dollars. Historically black universities.
Yeah.
He's also created the opportunity zones, which is going to be billions of dollars to allow us to gentrify our own communities. These are just things that are on the surface. And a guy of mine named Larry on Instagram, he's called Keyface. He said that if this is racism, I want that kind of racism. You know, like give me that kind of racism. If a guy is so racist and he's doing all these things for black people and he's trying to protect the country and he wants borders to protect us because we have been the most impacted by illegal immigration, give me that racism. Sign me up for that type of racism. Because, you know, my grandmother and my great-grandmother, they can tell you what real racism was. The information is different.
I need to go poop.
I think we have to take a break. We're talking about.
So we were talking about many of them, like the opportunity zones, prison reform,
Right,
HBCUs.
Yeah. Yes.
And then just me never being in the space to where I knew to hate this guy that all of a sudden everyone wanted me to hate. You know, I'm a facts over emotions type of person.
Okay.
I like to think for myself. I don't necessarily follow the herd, so to speak. And if I see like a majority consensus, I still want the majority of consensus to give me logical facts on why that is, why I should act or feel a certain way about something.
Not just an emotional response
Right.
to keywords or that type of thing.
So the whole buzzwords don't work with me.
Right.
You know, so I kind of exist in the space of understanding that.
Mm-hmm.
That may rub people the wrong way sometimes, but you know, at some point, hopefully, it'll make sense to them on why I don't overact like that.
Right.
Even more so when you're in public service and you're governing. Also, you have to have a very dual perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to even sometimes I don't make decisions to help people sometimes. Just thinking of myself because it's not about me. If it is about me, it's taken away from my time. I can be with my wife and my family, you know. So I'm just thinking about the gentlemen who helped me early on. They paid it forward, and so this is a copy and paste opportunity for me to pay it forward to other people, so we can continue that process over and over again.
Right.
You know, so that's why I do it.
Are you in alignment with his policies regarding immigration and a woman's right to choose?
The immigration part of it, I support the wall, but at the same time, I just really want border protection. That can come in many different forms. But if it's a wall, you know, that will potentially do that, that's great. What I always preference is that we don't have enough history or data of anything working, you know, for anything at this point when it comes to border protection. We're always going to figure out some kind of technology or some kind of way to make a way as far as people doing criminal activities or for illegals. I'm pro-life. I'm against abortion 100% when it comes to that. I'm very adamant about that, but I'm not the advocate person that's going around waving that flag.
Right.
But if you ask me the question, I answer the question very wholeheartedly, and I tell you why. You know, I see no difference in abortion and murder. That's kind of like my narrative when it comes to that. Like, you can't create a new word to cover up the same action, and that's just kind of like why I'm dead in the water when it comes to that. And the person who's for it, I still love them. I still will help empower them. I don't care. Like, that's just what you believe. It's no different than, it's a small gesture of opinion.
Yeah.
It's not like you're actually doing the abortion. You just support other people doing it, or you might support yourself individually doing it. And that's how I look at it. I don't look at it as a totality like the other side does, because I am about that. I just want you know, what if my mom decided to do that? What if their mom decided, you know, to do that? You know, so you just have to educate them and hopefully have a civil conversation when it comes to that. But oftentimes, you know, it doesn't go over well. And I've even, you know, even with my mother-in-law, my wife's mom, we've had a conversation about that. You know, she's been super liberal her entire life, and we had a very open, honest conversation about that. She had a certain point of view and a traditional historical point of view. With me being more politically educated and inclined more, I had a different point of view totally when it came to that.
Yeah.
And I think I somewhat resonated with her, you know, when it came to that. So, you know, that's what I try to do. I just like, if that's what you think, that's fine, but I don't want you dead.
Right.
I just want people to say, okay, that's what you think, that you're fine, I don't want you dead. Right now, it's like, oh, that's what you think, oh, I wish you dead.
And that reminds me, what you're talking about in this conversation even reminds me of what just happened recently to the recording of this podcast, where Ellen DeGeneres sat in the box with George W. Bush.
Right.
Very differing opinions and lifestyles, and they're
Yeah.
very good friends and can have conversations, and they agree to disagree. She received a lot of pushback.
For sure.
Which is why she felt like she had to respond. Can you tell me just briefly about some of the confrontations that have occurred in your life as a result of your viewpoints? Have people come up to you I know that you've had internet trolls
For sure.
and that kind of thing, but has there been anything in person, anything physical?
Well, no. I think, and people ask me that all the time. I'm not the average politician. I'm not 5'6". I'm not, like I'm a little tall, skinny guy, but I'm presentable in a way that kind of throws people off.
Right.
There was this one guy. I swear that he felt like he was going to sock me the first time he saw me in public, and I was at a rally for the Ralph's petition or whatever, and he happened to be there. And I went up to him, extended my hand. Hey, how you doing, sir? And he looked up at me.
Uh-huh.
And he was like, I don't want any trouble.
Oh.
I said, first of all, I'm running for mayor of Pasadena. I'm not in any public space trying to cause any trouble.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to actually have a conversation with you because obviously there's misinformation on who you feel like who I am, and you're
Mm-hmm.
attacking my character.
Yeah.
So let's talk as adults, and let's move past it.
Mm-hmm.
And then he couldn't take it. He just, I don't want any trouble. I don't want to talk to you. I don't want any trouble. So no physical things that have occurred to me. Yeah.
And you were also saying, I think before we started, that it's just really important for you to respond in a civil manner.
Yeah.
No matter what's said.
Yeah.
Or how it's said.
Yeah.
But because of what you're doing and,
For sure.
and the position that you're running for.
Yeah, I mean, so it's multiple sides of it, but I want to win this election.
Mm-hmm.
I really see the potential that we can do with a different brand of leadership.
Yeah.
But more importantly, I didn't start out that way as I was running. I was following back with long paragraphs on Facebook and the groups and everything. And it just took me being blessed with good people around me to like pull me in, much like, hey, look, this is what the game plan should be.
Right.
This is what it's looking like now. Do you want to be, you have to be strategic and patient with reaching the people. They're not voting tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just had to understand that and hear it from a different perspective and a different angle, and I was able to receive it and just act upon it.
Yeah.
Once you do it consistently enough, you find it to be routine, and that's what I found it to be right now. It's kind of routine.
Yeah. Last question. Will you be the first black mayor of Pasadena?
No, I will not.
How many have there been?
We've had two others, and the first black mayor was a woman.
Okay.
I believe it was like 1972, 74. I can't remember the actual date. And we also had a black mayor by the name of Chris Holden. But I will be the first black mayor voted in by a citywide election. When they were mayor, it's only because it was a rotating through city council.
Yes.
So I'll be the first black elected citywide mayor once that happens.
Someone told me that who grew up in Pasadena.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, are they electing mayors now? Because
we had the same mayor for 16 years at one point. The same exact guy.
Wow.
The same exact guy.
All right, you'll be fresh air.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're going to move to the segment that I told you about called
Mm-hmm.
Dear Laura. This one says, Dear Laura, I would love to represent my conservative women on social media, but since my son was diagnosed with cancer, thank God he's in remission now, I have stayed away from politics on social media. It's sad, but I need prayers for my son, and I, being a vocal Trump supporter, will bring negative energy towards him, so I'm forced to choose to hide my support for our president. Crazy times.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
This is actually a friend of mine.
Okay.
Who I've been.
And that's sad too.
Yeah, just kind of texting back and forth with because of her son's condition. And this was one of the things that she sent me for the show.
Right.
If I would talk about it on the show. And I was like, of course, because we want to represent all different viewpoints.
Right.
What do you think about what she said there?
Well, first I would say my prayers out to her and her son in their situation. It's very tough. I think a lot of people have the same sentiment, when it comes to that. Even business owners that I've talked to, small business owners, it's like, oh my gosh, this is so exciting. I support you, but I have to do it back here.
Mm.
Inside I'm very loud and vocal, but I have to profess it right here.
Right.
And some people's predicaments are, they've made the environment so hard for you to actually be for what you want to be, be with. It's put a lot of people in that predicament, whether they are just regular citizens, business owners, athletes, or whatever. I don't have a solution to it. when it comes to that. It's not for everyone to step out, just like it's not for everyone to be in public service. It just has to be your particular lane, and just know that for the ones that are out, I support you 100%. For the ones that are in, I support you 100%, because there's this thing, it's like you have to just like admit, like, I get it.
Yeah.
It really is tough.
Yeah.
And a lot of people told me early on, jumping in politics is going to be really crazy for you, and it is. But the difference is, I'm built for it, so to speak. Like everything that I've been through in my life has actually prepared me for this role and this opportunity that I see that I'm excited about. So I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
But definitely let her know that our prayers, or my family prayers, are with her
I will.
on her journey.
I will. Thank you for that.
Absolutely.
I do want to give a shout out to Chris and Melanie. They are the couple that I ran into at the event.
Okay.
Who were so impressed by you. So I just want to say their names on the podcast
Fantastic.
and thank them for connecting me with you. So Election Day is March 3rd,
Yes.
2020.
Mm-hmm.
And what's next for you between now and then?
So
I know a lot.
Yeah.
But
So it's a lot. It's a lot that's going on. It's a lot of new things that are coming on the table as well too. But as far as I announced that I'm doing a media blackout, a local media blackout that's drove a little people a little crazy. And it's only because we have decided to control our own narrative.
is everything okay?
I think they're singing.
Oh, he's trying to get
Are they
out.
I think he's
Stuck?
trying to get out.
Oh, is it locked?
No, she did.
Oh.
He probably don't know how to
Hold,
open
please.
it. Yeah, please. So we have kids on board.
We have kids on
Campaign
board.
manager number one.
Right?
Your wife can be assured we're not ignoring her.
Yes, right. She's going to be like, where were they?
Oh, they were right there. Oh, we locked them away for a second.
Exactly, in the dungeon.
Oh.
Where were we? I'm sorry.
I was asking you what's next for you. And
Okay.
between now and then, what you're going to be doing.
So we have different events. We do community events where we're talking to different community leaders, and we are just asking them to come out, share their stories. And one of the beautiful ways that we do it is we always started off with the foundation of come tell us what you love about Pasadena. While everyone is running their campaigns about all this negativity, come and tell us what you hate and what's frustrated. We can get to that, but come
Right.
tell us what you love about Pasadena. And we put them on camera. They allow us to put them on camera. And so those are going to be great commercial spots and ads that we're going to run a little bit later. But that's what people love about the transparency, the direction that I approach it with. My kids are with me. I'm out in the community. You can see me everywhere. We go to the Rose Bowl and we pass out waters. We'll be there this Saturday. So when people are walking and running around the Rose Bowl, we're passing out waters.
Yeah.
Of course, they have the stickers on them.
Very nice. You have your own water bottles.
We have lip chap, so we pass out lip
Oh,
balms,
okay.
and it has
Alright.
the sticker on it. So we're doing it from a very creative way. And the only way that we got to this point is the fact that I put in the legwork to go and study every single candidate on what they did in 2015, and I've watched every debate over 500 times
Wow.
for an entire year. So I knew all their tendencies, the nuances of things that they did
What worked,
during their
what didn't.
collections. Absolutely, and they didn't account for that. And I think even to this point right now, they don't believe that until they hear this interview,
Right.
because we use that as a mask that I'm this guy that doesn't know what he's doing as a first-time candidate.
It's awesome.
So we're gonna
Yeah.
connect with the people.
It's a little bit of a hustle.
Yeah. There you go. There you go.
You got to have a little hustle.
Yeah, so many community events coming up that we will sponsor and produce, and
Right.
we're submitting our own articles to the papers. So we're not doing interviews with any of their writers.
After me.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And I have my own two or three staff writers that's on my campaign,
Yes.
and we're gonna submit the stories.
So you're gonna set the narrative.
Absolutely.
And disseminate
because
it that
every
way.
time
Yeah.
they called me a volunteer, a youth counselor. A new candidate that's a youth counselor. I'm like,
No.
you mean what I did 20 years ago from my bio?
Yeah.
So you know what, we can't keep doing this. I'm too accomplished and I've worked too hard to build up the credentials that I have and the success I have and the people that I've helped.
Yeah.
It just didn't make sense for us to allow them to keep tarnishing our name in that way.
I heard that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, to that end, where can people find you to support you or learn more about you?
The website 100%. So you can go to thinkmajor.com.
Mm-hmm.
You can go to majorwilliams.com. And you can go to majorformayor.com.
Okay.
But sometimes people, when you say Major for Mayor, you may, oh, is it a 4 or is it an F? Or just go to Major Williams.